We're going to get started. So this is our Fly at Columbia summer webinar, really kind of geared towards thinking about pre-arrival. There are a few other fly sessions that we'll talk about today as well. But to get started, I did want to kind of just gauge how everyone is doing and what everyone's thoughts are as we're getting closer to NSOP. So on your screen, you should see the Mentimeter here. You can either use that QR code or I'm going to drop in the chat a link for you all to join. And I just want to start off with thinking about 2 to 3 words that capture how you feel about moving into Columbia. All right, going to give it a few more seconds in case anyone else wants to share. Seems like definitely a lot of the same feelings. Optimistic, wanderlust, anxious, enthusiastic, ready, curious. Delight is a good one. Nauseous is also fair too. All right, well, we're going to keep it going. Just kind of wanted to just see where everyone is at, and also do want to affirm, of course, that all of the feelings are definitely valid. Coming into Columbia, it can be a lot of transition time and a lot of different moving parts and a lot of different emotions as well. So want to encourage everyone to kind of show up to Columbia as they are with all of these emotions that they've put up here. But before we get into a little bit more about, what the webinar will look like today, I want to do some introductions. So first off, my name's Destiny Machin, she, her pronouns. I'm the Associate Director of Multicultural Affairs and Program Director of Fly at Columbia, which is why I'm here today. I'm a CEAS 2019 alumna, and just really happy to be back at Columbia. And I'll pass it off to Itzel.
Hi everyone, my name is Itzel Franco. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a rising junior at Columbia College, majoring in English. This year, I'm also the identity-based programming coordinator for NSOP. I'll be at a lot of the FLI programming events throughout NSOP week, and I'm looking forward to meeting you all.
Hi everyone, my name is Hayden. I'm a rising senior in CEAS studying operations research. I'm the co-op coordinator this year. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm really looking forward to meeting a lot of you during the immersion experiences this year.
And hi everyone, my name is Anthony. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a current rising senior in CEAS studying biomedical engineering and entrepreneurship. And I'm one of your many great OL leaders ready to kind of meet all of you guys and with all the great experience you're going to have. And so I'll personally be in co-op, so I know me and Hayden are going to be really excited for that. But yeah, looking forward to meeting you all.
So now that we have everyone on the call, want to kind of just share what today's going to look like. So we did our welcome and introductions. We'll talk a little bit more about how do we define fly. We'll think through a few pieces for preparing for move-in. Again, this pre-arrival webinar is geared towards making sure you all have the tools and kind of context and just tips and tricks from our upperclassmen to know how to move in. We'll have a Q&A session. I'm hoping I can keep at least 30 minutes for that. So we'll kind of breeze through some of the informational stuff and leave some time for you all to ask questions. And then we'll do closing and next steps. So that being said, to get started, so what is FLI? At Columbia, we use the acronym FLI. It is pronounced FLI, FLY. It's an acronym for our first generation and or low-income students. So FLI students is an intersectional identity, meaning that students can hold either one of these identities or both of these identities. So first generation or low income or first generation and low income. Some people also use the acronym FGLI, so you may have heard that at other institutions or back home. We use FLI here at Columbia. So how we define who is considered first gen at Columbia is thinking about a student whose parents or guardians have not received a 4-year U.S. bachelor's degree or completed a 4-year U.S. bachelor's degree later in life. So we're really thinking about kind of the traditional, or the traditional college trajectory So if your parents got a degree outside of the US, you're going to have, a different time kind of navigating the US college system here. And also thinking about, our parents that maybe got a degree later in life might not have that transition period similar to, our CCNC students that are going from high school to Columbia. And then who is considered low income? So the way that we define it here at Columbia is students who have a $0 or low parent contribution and or identify as coming from a less resource community. So something that's very important to note, there is no, um, the FLI identity is a very personal identity. There's kind of some markers that we have, but you all will choose to self-identify as FLI or not, and also kind of some of the supports around that as well. So I want to talk very briefly about FLI supports. We'll talk a little bit more about this in the upcoming programs that we have during NSOP, but I do want to mention this ahead of time as well. So in terms of our larger FLI supports for students, we have our First and Family programs, which is through the Center for Student Advising. It's been around for a while. They focus a little bit more on academic support, professional development, career development, and thinking a little bit more about cultural enrichment. And then we have FLI at Columbia, which is me in my office at Multicultural Affairs, focusing on the student experience, advocacy, and support outside of the classroom. So to share a little bit more in depth what that means for FLI at Columbia, we have kind of these 4 big pillars and things that we do as an office. So helping students navigate campus resources. There are a lot of resources at Columbia. It can be hard to kind of navigate sometimes. And so our job is to help you all figure out what resources to use when. Facilitating community building. So we're very big programming office as well, making sure that students have opportunities to connect with other FLI students. Advocating for FLI student concerns. So being able to elevate different concerns across the university, across our different campus partners, and then as well as increasing campus awareness of what it means to be FLI and how to support FLI students. And I just went ahead and kind of put this map here. There are plenty of different spaces and offices and faculty and staff who are very supportive of FLI students, but I kind of just wanted to map out some of our support network for FLI students. So here you have FLI at Columbia, that's me and my team. Alice Health Promotion, thinking about for health, CPS for psychological services, SVR, First and Family programs, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. Also supports for undergrad research and fellowships. So kind of that enrichment during your time here at Columbia. Undergraduate global engagement, which really kind of focuses on study abroad and other opportunities like that. Financial aid, of course, is a huge one for our FLI students. Thinking about career education with our Center for Career Education, Admissions, and Alumni Office. So these are just a few of the big partners that we work with to kind of create this support network for incoming FLI students and students that are already here at Columbia. All right. So that being said, I did want to transition. Again, I'm going to try and kind of get us quickly through this to give you guys as much information or as much time for question and answer as possible. I kind of created this summer checklist. This is not the end all be all of everything, but I kind of just kind of went through our countdown to Columbia, which is a great resource and is #1 on my checklist for all the things to do to prepare to being on campus. This checklist is kind of with a FLI lens of things that I, talked with other FLI students about what's important to keep in mind for a FLI student as they're transitioning to being on campus in a few weeks. So that being said, the first one is keeping an eye on the countdown to Columbia. So if you're in this webinar, you've likely been on the Countdown to Columbia website. It shows you all of the different deadlines, all the upcoming webinars, all of the information, housing portals, etc. So definitely keep an eye out on that. Checking your financial aid award package. So by now, everyone should have their awards, allotments, should know if they have work study or not, their expected contributions, things like that. So definitely make sure you are able to check in with your award package. Another key piece too is exploring on-campus jobs over the summer. So if you are looking for a job, once you get to campus, they do kind of fill up very quickly. Over the summer is definitely a great time to start browsing at least and start applying. Um, I will also, oh yes, so I'll put in the chat some of our links. Just so it's easy, you can open them up and put them as bookmarks if you need. But yes, there are a couple links for the on-campus job. So if you do have work study and you find this in your financial aid award package, there's a link for work study jobs. If not, there's also a link for casual jobs. So that is something to keep an eye on. Reviewing outside scholarship policies. So I know a lot of our students do come in with outside scholarships. A lot of the times there is limits to how much will be accepted and how much will be taken out of your aid package from Columbia, um, which is not a bad thing, just something to keep in mind. So definitely that link that's in the chat for outside scholarship policies, you're going to want to take a look at that as well. Planning for your e-bill and explore payment options. So if you do have an e-bill, it will be made available. I think payment plans start August 1st. So those should be coming in the next couple of weeks. Those links are also on the Countdown to Columbia website, but I also put it in the chat as well, thinking about, what payments you might have and how you can split it up, or if you're able to pay all the way up front, and other options for aid there. Considering your health insurance options. So some of you might have seen a couple links for health insurance so far. There are a couple options. If your current health insurance does kind of meet the eligibility criteria that Columbia has for health insurance, then you can waive getting Columbia's health insurance. Um, or you can also choose to enroll in Columbia Health Insurance. Definitely something to keep in mind, talk about with your parents, kind of weigh the options. And there's, again, also another link in the chat for that as well. And then something really awesome is thinking about all the things that you're carrying with you when you arrive to campus. Please try and ship items ahead of time if you can. So again, that last link will kind of show you to a program that Columbia started, I think, last year, which has been really great. If you if you have packages delivered to your to the mail center between August 1st and August 15th, then facilities will put this already in your room. So it's just kind of waiting for you in your room. So that link will kind of give you some more information there, but definitely try to travel as light as possible. I know there's extra fees for checking in extra bags and things like that. So we do have a program to kind of help with some of that stuff as well. Awesome. Okay. All right, and I'm going to turn it over now to Itzel to share a little bit more about hidden costs and some of our upperclassmen tips and tricks.
Thank you. So something we wanted to share with y'all are like some of the hidden costs you might encounter over the summer and early into the school year. The first of these being travel related. Traveling to and from the airport, especially if you're flying, can be really expensive. So we suggest you consider taking the bus or train, depending on how many bags you have. This might not be super feasible. We also recommend trying to take earlier or later flights because they tend to have cheaper Uber or Lyft costs, and carpooling can also be another great option. The second one of these is to look at your student contribution. This should have come in your financial aid package. You should see it kind of included in there. All students have at least a minimum of $2,400 as part of that award. Be sure to look at this closely and set up appointment with financial aid if you have any questions at all. Um, the last of these is to look out for the Dean's Students Assistant Fund. This is specifically for financially eligible students for specific needs that include winter clothes, technology, emergency travel, unexpected health costs, and more. And then like the tips and tricks, these are things we also wanted y'all to have in mind as you prepare for the incoming school year. We recommend connecting with your roommate ahead of time to discuss expectations and splitting costs for shared space. I think it's a great idea to get these conversations out of the way before classes start. And it's also worth having these conversations early on, especially if you plan shipping things to your room. EcoReps also hosts a green sale where gently used common items from former students are sold at a reduced price. You can get textbooks, appliances, and more. It's also worth exploring the options for free and or cheaper course materials. The FLI Lending Library in Butler is a great resource. And then you can also maybe see if upperclassmen have textbooks you may need. And then ask for help and connect with FLI student organizations. Destiny has already spoken about the many amazing FLI organizations on campus, and you can always reach out to either of us with any questions.
Awesome. All right. Okay. So we can just turn it over to question and answer then. So students can start putting questions in the chat. We'll kind of go through, this will be mostly our students here, our current students sharing some student perspectives on the questions that you have, what you need for pre-arrival, thinking about moving into Columbia.
So the first question is there an extra cost when bringing extra bags when moving in?
For Columbia, there's no extra cost. For your flight, there might be, checking extra bags. So that is the only extra cost we're talking about in terms of travel.
I'll go ahead and answer the next question, which reads, would there be any help on Columbia's health insurance plan? I recommend talking to your financial aid officer or just any of the financial aid officers to ask about whether you can get on the health insurance waiver, which would cover the cost of the Columbia health insurance plan. This would make it free for you to use Columbia's health insurance, and you would receive the same benefits as somebody who is, paying out of pocket.
And for the next one, can on-campus jobs cover cover expenses that are the student contribution and unlisted expenses? Yes, if you have a work study portion of your financial aid, that can be covered through on-campus jobs. On-campus jobs also offer something called casual employment, where you receive a paycheck for the hours worked rather than it going straight to your federal student aid or federal the federal work study. So it depends on what type of aid you have, but in most cases you can get casual employment and earn a paycheck from student jobs on campus.
I can go ahead and also answer the question about class difficulty. Somebody asked how difficult are classes and does this vary? It definitely does vary. I think that you will find that some of your peers might have an easier time in some courses than you will, and I think that that's just natural. I think you can definitely you're going to start soon, so when you start your first week, just kind of feel out each class, and you'll find you're more inclined to some subjects than others, but it's just try your best to do what you can.
I can also add some context to that one too, and then I also had some context for another question before I forget. There are some, if you are a STEM major, there are some different kind of levels. So like 1200, 1400, 1600 for like physics classes, for example. There's also different levels to math courses as well. So that's something to consider. Definitely recommend kind of looking into the professor and the reviews on the different classes to keep that in mind.
Personally, things I recommend packing, pretty much anything you use in your daily life or that you will use, like bedding, the basic things, but also like if you like to play a certain sport, if you, enjoy spike ball, bring those things, bring things for leisure, bring things just that you would use in your everyday life week to week, because you're going to be essentially living here for 3 or 4 months before you go home for a couple weeks for winter break.
Yeah, and also to add on that, like stuff in New York City tends to be like a really expensive sometimes, but, like more expensive if you're coming from outside. I personally like to, go to Walmart and get all the stuff I like to, like, sustain myself with, like snacks and stuff like that. So just be mindful like what stuff you could get or what stuff you're looking to get. At the end of the day, if you get surplus of anything, it's just going to be like stuff you can use like later into time.
So I actually have the answer to the next question, which is asking about the green sale. So EcoReps does a green sale every year for fall check-in. It will be held this year, I believe, on that Monday, September 3rd. It is on the website. I can also drop a link in the chat when I find it. But it is a really, really great way to kind of save on some just some discounted items, lightly used. Maybe there's a lot of fridges usually, which is good. A lot of household items that people don't think to kind of sell on their own, or they just, EcoRefs just collects it. So yes, take a look out for that. It will be, I believe, Monday, and I'll send a link in the chat when I find it.
Regarding summer storage, I'm not sure if you're asking about the mailing your things to your dorm, because in that regard, facilities just delivers it to your dorm, pre-move in. But as for like storing your belongings over the summer, there are lots of places around campus that do storage. There's Manhattan Mini Storage. So there's just a lot of self-storage places that you pay a monthly fee for. There's definitely more that I recommend. But if you take just a quick Google search of like self-storage near Columbia University, will bring up a good amount of options.
Something I want to mention with that too is that sometimes the smallest storage rooms can be really expensive and you can have extra space. So if there's a trusted friend or person that you're moving out around the same time with, sometimes it might kind of help to split the cost if you trust the person and you're able to kind of talk through those finances with them. So just something to keep in mind. Some people will need more space than others, but if you have kind of smaller storage over the summer, you can also consider maybe splitting with someone as well.
And for the people interested in renting a U-Haul to like transport their stuff to one of those like self-storage units, I know people have also split the cost of the U-Haul itself in the past. If like all your friends are living in the same dorm, and like it's just a lot easier to transport things that way than it is to walk to your storage unit or whatever.
Yeah. Also, just to add on a little bit more on to that, I know some storage also have like included into the price, like transportation for whatever you're storing, or something they offer that service. I know, like I've seen a lot of people get really stressed out with like coordinating with like 16 different people to get like really big, also with like a big truck. So just be mindful of that. Like some people just want to go in an Uber, but try not to stress out too much. At the end of the day, it's like as long as your stuff gets there, it's fine.
In regard to move-in day, last year it was pretty quick. We would offload people on College Walk, and a lot of the times OLs aren't required to help you move your things to your dorm, but a lot of them, if they're not doing much else, they will help you move things to your dorm, especially if you ask. So it shouldn't be slow this year. It should be pretty fast paced. You go straight from your vehicle to figuring out where the check-in table is. You grab your ID, your T-shirt, whatever other merch they have, and then we get you straight into your dorm to start setting stuff up. So that's typically what the timeline is. There's not a lot of waiting.
I can talk a little bit about the transition to Columbia. I think it was definitely a struggle, but I think most people do struggle. I think reaching out to my family and also the friends I had back home was really important to making a smooth transition to Columbia. And also I think NSOP for me personally was a really great part of my first year experience. I met a bunch of new people right off the bat, and you're in immersions, you're meeting a lot of great people. Co-op's really fun. Shout out to co-op. All our immersions are really fun. And I think that was a really important part for me. And you said something about the social environment. I think NSOP is a great way of setting you up to meet a lot of amazing people that you wouldn't meet in a bunch of your classes. I'm an English major, and some of my closest friends are pre-med. Some of my closest friends also are on like the swim team, and it was just a great way for me to meet people that I would have never met in my life.
Yeah, adding on to that a little bit, join clubs, try intramural sports, club sports, go to the club fair. There's probably something you're going to enjoy there. There's more clubs than I can even name. So honestly, just try all the different spaces at Columbia and you'll find your people kind of piecemeal throughout there. You're not going to fully vibe with any one group, but you'll find your people. Just reach out and join clubs and, try new experiences.
Yeah, also on that note, I know one thing that I've seen help with a lot of people, including myself, was within NSOP also. There's a lot of stuff like, especially with the FLI community. Like they're going to throw events, cultural groups if you're really into your culture or religion. Like all these clubs will also be throwing major events. So there's going to be a lot of notifications being thrown at you on your phone when you guys are in NSOP. But that's just another step into getting like your community feel. So there's definitely also like places around campus that you can find your place in.
Yeah, to that note, we already briefly mentioned this, but there are events during the week of NSOP specifically for FLI students. Me and Destiny will be doing a lot of that, but there's also other events for other groups. So, if you're a student of color, there's student of color groups. There's so many events that you can do within NSOP, and then there's also a lot of clubs that you can join after NSOP to continue those friendships, to continue the bonds you make.
All right, and on the question of suggestions for lower cost places to stay, honestly, Jersey. If your parent is coming, stay in Jersey, take the train into the city for the day. That's probably the cheapest way you're going to find it. Or, maybe even signing your parent into your dorm and letting them sleep on an air mattress in your room. I'd say those are probably way cheaper than looking at getting accommodations within New York City.
I can also speak to on-campus jobs. Luckily, there are a lot of jobs that are typically open. You will never find that there are like never any jobs available, but I do think it is helpful to start looking early on to see what you might be interested in doing. I know there's jobs at Dodge, there's jobs at the library. I've worked with some of the nonprofits here on campus through work study. I'm also currently working at the law school as part of like the work study program. So there's so many fun things to explore through work study, and I don't think those opportunities are ever like missing or like just non-existent. There's always going to be something available.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that a little bit. Something to consider. I will say, so, I mean, one of the jobs that do tend to fill up pretty quickly are the libraries. They are like a very traditional kind of, on campus job. But that being said, again, kind of what Itzel was sharing, there are definitely different types of jobs. Also, different jobs have different times in the day. So some jobs may just be 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., kind of some time slots there. Some jobs may require you to work a full block versus maybe 2 hours at a time. So definitely kind of keep in mind some of that. Um, there may be certain jobs that go quicker or are more popular, but it really is kind of just whatever fits your individual needs and whatever fits your class schedule and stuff like that.
Right. To that point, I'll also say the jobs do pay differently. There'll be some jobs they have them at different levels. So class one jobs usually pay the least, and something like a class four job usually pays the most. There are also jobs that are completely virtual. So if that's something of interest to you, that's definitely worth checking out. I can also answer the next question about federal work study. At least for me, I get my money directly deposited into my personal bank account. What I choose to do with that money is what I choose to do with that money. I personally use it partially to help pay for some of the expenses I have with school, but then some of it's also like just smaller transportation costs, like if I want to take the subway downtown or if I want to go to like a fancier restaurant and get something to eat. That's usually where my work study money goes. And also buying plane tickets home is another part of where my work study goes, but it's totally up to you to use that work study money how you'd like. It goes directly into your bank account, so that should not be an issue.
For the process of setting up a bank account, also I think it's a very convoluted question just because like a lot of these like different banks have different policies for what suits your needs. I know like a really common thing that a lot of students use, and I'm not sure if it's like good. It works for everybody, depending what your situation with parents are. But the Discover Student Card is a card that I think offers a lot of like student contributions whenever you have to, start your financial journey. Um, and that's just a lot of the advice that I got from like other students that have used the same thing. But eventually, it's a stepping stone to graduate to other more specialized companies. And there's a bunch of banks nearby. I guess like centers. I know the Chase is like right down the street. There's a Wells Fargo. So there's really no one answer to that question, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. I think just in general, when thinking about setting up a bank account is kind of figuring out what your individual needs are. Do you like need to set up a checking, savings, a credit card? Would you prefer having a bank that is, has a physical location you could visit often? As Anthony mentioned, there's a Chase, a Wells Fargo, there's Bank of America, not too far from campus. Things like that. So it is very, very kind of individualistic, but definitely something to kind of weigh your different options.
As for insurance, I think Columbia requires you to have health insurance, whether it be through the Columbia plan or your own private insurance. Which, if you have your own private insurance, you just waive the Columbia plan and then you enter the details for your health insurance. As for property insurance, I don't think they make you get property insurance for the housing or dorms at all. You're just liable for any damage that is done in your dorm or in your living space. So, try not to hang things with little push pins or, tape that'll take paint off the wall. But aside from that, I think you just have to have some sort of health insurance, whether it's the Columbia plan or your own.
And then the next question is asking if professors prefer physical copies of textbooks. In the STEM classes that I've taken, that is whether you have a physical textbook or not doesn't really matter. But I will say in the humanities classes that I have taken, there are some professors that do have no technology policies, especially in the smaller seminars. I've been in a few seminars and most, if not all, have required me to have a physical copy of the textbook present in class, no laptop, no iPad, which I know can be a little bit of a financial struggle for some students. I do really recommend Butler Library or just like all of Columbia's libraries because you're usually able to check out books from there. Also, the FLI library has all of the Lit Hum and CC books. So if you need them, I recommend as soon as you get on campus, going to the library and checking those books out because unfortunately there is a limited amount of resources that they have. So getting those as soon as possible so you're guaranteed these books throughout the semester. And then also there's book culture near campus. Their books are pretty inexpensive. They're less expensive than if you were to buy them on Amazon and if you don't have a premium account because then you're paying for like shipping costs and everything. But yeah, I think hopefully that answers your question.
So I can answer the next question. So the question was, what's the process for paying your student contribution if you decide to work a casual job? So this kind of alludes to previous question too about whether your federal work study goes straight towards your bill or whether it comes straight to you. Both for casual jobs and for federal work study jobs, you will be paid out either direct deposit or whatever. So that money will go straight to you. In terms of paying down the bill, that is something that you will have to, go in and do yourself. Again, as I mentioned earlier, there are payment plan options as well. I believe for first years, those open up on August 1st. Those links that I sent earlier are definitely going to help you figure out what those timelines and dates are. But essentially, kind of the same deal with casual jobs and federal work study jobs. You will get paid out the money, and then from there, you can choose to use that towards your student contribution. And something to mention too, maybe I'm getting a little too into it, but since we have some time, there is also not for our incoming first years because you've just gotten here, but when you're thinking about next year's student contribution over the summer, CCE, our Center for Career Education, does have work exemption programs to help you get experience at a job, but also pay down the student contribution through work. So definitely more on that in our upcoming sessions, but something to keep in mind as well.
In terms of meal swipes in the dining plan, most dining halls on campus have a coffee and like tea station where you can, make your own coffee. I know John Jay even has the espresso machines where you can get hot chocolate, all different types of coffee. So it really depends on where you go to use your meal swipes. But most places, most of the main dining halls like Ferris, John Jay, JJ's place, they all have like coffee stations. So, what you need, you can pretty much spend a swipe, but it's just dependent on where you go.
And also in most dining halls, it's kind of like you can keep getting more food as long as you're in the dining hall. I think the only dining hall that doesn't really do that, or the few that don't, are the pizza place in Mud, Chef Don's and also Chef Mike's. They just you can only get like one sandwich, like one bag of chips, one drink. But at all the other dining halls like Ferris, JJ's, John Jay, which are the ones closer to the first year dorms anyway, you can pretty much stay in there as long as you'd like and grab as much food as you need. Um,
Yeah, and also into that, you also get access to barnard dining halls as well. So it's not just included to like the really great dining halls also that we have. Also, like they said, buffet style. You can just like eat as much as you want. One thing they're also really stringent on is taking out food though. Like sometimes you have to like pay like in order to get like a ticket to dinner. I think they're just now waiving it, but before it would be like 50 cents off of like your flex or dining dollars to get like a package to carry out. But I know like secretly but like some dining halls sometimes will let you like like walk out with some food, but that's on the DL. But that bar dining halls I would also highly suggest because they're really good and they have good food.
A quick little addition to that answer as well. So if you're not hungry and you just want coffee around campus, there are, places on campus that you're able to use dining dollars or flex dollars. So let's say you're not hungry, but you do have dining dollars or flex kind of built into your what's the word, meal plan. Then you can kind of use those as one off instead of, just going to a dining hall that's buffet style and then using a swipe on that. So something to consider too.
Okay, I actually have one thing for the next question. It's like a charger that has like multiple like plugins. So I have like so many devices. I use a USB-C cord. I also use like the lightning cable. And you like that has been like one of the most useful things I ever bought. So I recommend getting, I wish I might have it in my bag actually, but I just recommend you get like a plugin that has like a ton of different kinds of like, yeah, I don't know. I just think that would be really helpful. At least it was for me.
For me, I found extra storage, like little like blue storage bins or like a caddy that you can hang in your closet, to put like different supplies and stuff in, just ways to make your space, I guess, more efficient and store things better because first year dorms, you're not really working with a ton of space. So you got to find places to put things and organize things so that it's more convenient for you.
Yeah, and I want to double down on like I found this like really great thing in like Target, and it was like a lamp, like a desk lamp, a wireless charger, a alarm clock, and I had like some other like ports, and like that saved me so much like time and like effort during a lot of stuff, because I had everything I needed, just all in one little like I think it was like 30, $20 thing, but definitely like it's all had the right note.
Like I will live by this. It has the USB and the USB-C, so I can like charge multiple things at once. Like when you're in the library and they're like people trying to like use outlets like crazy, this will come in handy. Um, I think that's my number one.
Oh, it's not like huge, but me personally, a hammock that I can put up in Riverside and go relax. As an outdoorsy person, if you're like me and you want somewhere to relax that's not on campus or even on campus, if you can find a couple trees that are 15 feet apart, a nice little portable hammock.
I will also say a good water bottle that you can have around, one that, maybe isn't super expensive. So if you lose it, you're not like too sad about it, but keeps your water cold because some of the water fountains don't have the coldest water. So what I would do is I would pop it in the fridge if that was the case, and then I'd have cold water every day. That's another thing.
Oh, a bowl. I think like I really don't need a plate, but like a bowl you can put like anything in, and you can just put it in like some of the microwaves in like the thing kitchen. Like if you want ramen late at night, just like fill it with water. Like a bowl is like I think in my opinion more valuable than a plate. But that's just I didn't want to come into college with like 16 different pans or anything like that. I just use a bowl.
Yeah, that's the other thing. If you don't really cook, maybe don't bring a bunch of things for cooking. The dining halls have everything you need, and that's one of those things that I've seen a bunch of people buy and then they don't end up using it. I think Anthony's idea of only buying like one bowl is a good idea because realistically, like you just wash the bowl and then use it again and then wash it and just use it again. You don't really need multiple, especially if you're not cooking a lot.
All right, in terms of the question of imposter syndrome and how I deal with it, I'm going to be a senior this year, and I can tell you the imposter syndrome is it still comes and goes. You know, you're seeing a lot of different people here. You're meeting people who have different experience, who've come from maybe a private school or you know, a feeder school for like something like this, and you know, other people that come from like rural public high schools, like things like that. We're all coming from different backgrounds, different income levels, different experiences. You know, so I feel like it's kind of the biggest way to deal with it is just to appreciate where you are, what you've done to get here, and to realize that comparison is honestly the thief of joy. You know, if you go around looking at everyone else on campus and pulling out the things that you can see about them, not the imposter syndrome that they hide, you're going to be unhappy. You have to try to lean into your strengths and um, meet yourself where you're at. You know, appreciate what you can do and ask for help when you need it. You know, everybody needs help, and if somebody tells you that they never need help on assignments and things like that, that's probably not the person getting the highest grade in the class.
Yeah, and also just on double on that note, like all the big part of that that's also dealing with it is also being around people that also understand like the experiences that you're coming from. I know like for me, like I found like, you know, a friend group that, you know, also, you know, didn't go to like maybe a high end private school or like didn't have parents that were able to help them on like essays and other stuff like that. And that really helped because like we don't do this what we did, but like, you know, together like studying all night for like the physics exam together because like we are all coming from like the same level, and it really did help a lot of time to know that like you're not the only one, and I guarantee you that you won't be the only one if you're struggling in the class or even if you're doing great in the class. Like, you know, then you celebrate all together. Like there's a community of people that you're surrounding yourself with, and it just kind of all, you know, it's all dependent on the people you surround yourself with. But yeah, I yeah.
Yeah, I agree with what Anthony said. I think it's very easy to feel like you're the only person going through like this experience, like you're doing it alone. But in reality, there's so many people like with similar experiences as you that you're gonna find, hopefully, and meet. And also something that I wanted to add is like I think what's helped me is like remembering that like I worked hard and y'all have worked hard to get here and y'all have earned your spot at this school, and you deserve to, you know, take up space and make use of the resources and give it your best shot.
Yeah, and also one thing that I think is a bit like personal for me myself, but also something I regret not doing earlier is really taking advantage of the CPS service that the Columbia offers. I think beforehand, like just not having someone to talk to, really added a lot of stress onto myself that, you know, weighed me down a little bit in my first beginning years. Like my first year, and now I'm a rising senior. So like having like that, you know, consistent support, just on the mental side and the personal side, especially as like life doesn't stop when you enter college. Like stuff is still going on around you. Like you still have like some family issues. And so like just having that like outlet of support really just paid dividends.
In terms of extracurriculars, there are some that you have to apply to, you know, like our a cappella groups, or there are certain like business like clubs and like things like that that are application based. But if I'm gonna estimate, probably maybe 20% of like student groups are like application based. Most of them are just like you show up to the general body meetings, you know, you get to know the execs and the officers on the board. And if you are interested in a leadership position, you kind of just like pursue it throughout the year, attending the general body meetings. I mean, like most extracurriculars that you would have to apply to are just like performance based or like things of those caliber.
Yeah, I agree. Like the career focused ones. So like if you're interested in finance, or I know like Columbia Spectator, blog, all those kinds of places, they do typically have an application process that you have to go through. But I feel like that is the minority of the clubs on campus. There's so many that don't require you to submit an application. And like Hayden was saying, it's a much more chill process.
Yeah, and also to add on to that, like some like the clubs that you do apply to can be like just if you want to take more of a leadership position in, for instance, like the core like entrepreneurship, you technically do apply to the club, but that's only to be what is considered like an operational committee leader, and you just apply to be part of the process of like planning the events, while like all the events that they actually do plan, like a lot of the resources that you have are open to everybody, and so like there's a lot of like activities that they do that you get all the information about all the experience from without actually technically I guess being in the club, but you are part of like the club and the community that like is part of what the club actually does. And that's the case for like a lot of like say a lot of business clubs and a lot of some of the professionals.
Right. And just
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
sorry, Itzel. Just being mindful of time. We'll take two more questions. Does anyone want to answer the question about is it worth buying a Metro weekly pass?
So for me, I think this is a really personal question to you, but I will say the Columbia, like the area around Columbia pretty much has everything you could need from like clothing tailors to grocery stores to, you know, a deli you go get a sandwich at. Like there are pretty much resources within walking distance of campus. So it's more of a personal question of how much are you going to be using the subway? Because Columbia's campus is pretty much confined to one area, the dorms, the food, the classes, everything's pretty much confined to one area. So for me, it was not worth it. It wouldn't be worth it because I'm more of a homebody. I stick around campus. I have a favorite deli right across the street from campus. So like I don't go very far, but if you're planning to go to Midtown often, or if you're planning to go to like take trips to Brooklyn like a couple times a week, just consider how time intensive that's going to be with your studies. First off, and second off, like I said, most things are around Columbia. You don't have to go far for them.
All right. And I will actually take the last question. There are a few more questions. I'm so glad we were able to leave so much time for Q&A. The last question I'll talk about is a perfect segue. The question is, are there FLI activities during orientation? And if so, do we sign up for them or is there a different process? So speaking to that, what to expect next, we have kind of two things here during NSOP and during the academic year. During NSOP, we do have several different opportunities for FLI students to engage with each other, learn from each other, learn from more upperclassmen, kind of learn a little bit more about our programs and a little bit more in depth about our resources, things like that. This session was really just to kind of start helping you all imagine the transition to campus as you're preparing for NSOP. So we have our FLI welcome on the 26th. We have our FLI financial aid, very, very important, on the 30th. Oh, whoops, a little bit of a typo. On the 31st, we have our intro to FLI. We have a FLI mixer as well on the 1st, and that'll be with our upperclassmen, which will be exciting. And we'll also have FLI roundtables. So as you can see, there are plenty different ways to engage with other FLI students, both incoming and current, throughout NSOP. And then just want to mention kind of a peek at the academic year. You have our TGIFF lunch chats, which stands for thank goodness it's FLI Friday. So we do those on Fridays once a month. The IVG conference for first gen students is coming up this year in October. We have our Be the First dinners for our first gen students to interact with staff and faculty that were also first gen. FLI town halls to kind of have your voice heard and hear from other folks in the community. We have break programming. So if you're not able to go home or prefer to stay on campus during Thanksgiving and spring break, we have programming through FLI at Columbia. and then also FLI graduation. So these are a few things to kind of expect throughout the year, but mostly a highlight on during NSOP. There are plenty of activities. And that being said, we'll get a lot more into that in our next couple of sessions. But our last piece is definitely just getting connected. So I have a QR code up here. This is for the Fly at Columbia mailing list. During the year, I send biweekly newsletters with kind of all these different programs, all of our student groups that are Fly student groups, different resources, office hours, things like that. So if you are interested in staying connected and keeping informed on all things Fly, please, please, please scan the QR code and join our mailing list. You will also start to see on Countdown to Columbia, and as soon as the kind of like booklets for NSOP come out, all of those NSOP Fly activities as well. But otherwise, we are at our stop time of 2 p.m. Thank you all for joining us today. And I'm excited to meet you all on campus soon.